The partnership that we've had with the National Writing Project at UNCC has been really powerful for us. It has been something that allowed us to tap into conversations that we wouldn't have been able to tap into before. So at the Science Center, we're always thinking about what is the best approaches to education? What is the best that we can offer for not just our educators, but our guests, as we're thinking about how do we engage people in science, how do we empower people in science, and thinking differently, not just about science, but also about literacy, and thinking about how that comes into play. Frequently, science is always taught in very cookbook ways. It's taught in very dogmatic ways that are discipline specific. And I think what this allows us to do is to have conversations with people who are thinking very differently about how does science work, but also how does writing work, how does literacy work, and what are the opportunities for us to bring the two together in the museum, in our programs, in partnerships with schools and other organizations. So it's been a powerful one that we've...
There.
Well, for us at Discovery Place, this project has had a big impact with our educators. And those conversations that we've been able to have would have been harder to have if we had tried to just do them internally. But it's also allowed us to really expand what are images of possibilities, that's a Dr. Brandon term, images of possibilities in terms of thinking about how do we integrate literacy into programs that happen at the museum that are one-offs, that maybe only last an hour, or a summer camp that lasts a full week, or even after-school programs where educators are out with the school working for the entire year, as well as our professional development programs. So all of those things together with the National Writing Project conversations that we've been able to have both locally and nationally have been powerful for us to really imagine new ways of bringing in literacy, journaling, notebooking, the creative process as a part of science, because if the creative process sees us to be a part of science, then science sees us to evolve and move forward. So we think that's powerful. And we love the idea of make and really expanding what make can be. You know, make is frequently defined as you know, Arduinos and tinkering and Raspberry Pis, but we also think through the National Writing Project conversation, and my inherent bias, because I have an English background as well as a science background, that make is about writing, it's about communicating, it's about how do we capture that wonder in the world around us. And it's just not just about circuits and wires. We love circuits and wires, and they're amazing, and LED lights and coding. But it's also about writing poetry. It's also about journaling and notebooking and observing. And so for us, it has been a powerful partnership that has impacted our educators, the culture of our organization, how we think about programming and programming opportunities, and how we incorporate literacy and science together. And then for the National Writing Project, hopefully what they've gotten out of it is continue this conversation about how do these informal tenets that we think are powerful, that schools don't have a monopoly on learning, that learning happens out in the community, that learning happens everywhere, and it's not always driven by standards, and it's not always driven by what's going to be on the test, whether it's at the end of the week or end of the year. And so thinking about how do we inspire and empower kids so that they're able to do things that are interesting to them, that capture their sense of wonder, and have them be self-actualized so that they can be a contributing, empowered member of society. Well, tinkering and making play a big role in our museum, and we've really taken that to another level in the past few years with the help of the National Writing Project as well as others. And so we really believe that when you come to a museum, you don't just come to receive, you don't just come to see what other people have done, you don't just come to marvel at the work of others, but you come to contribute, and you come to work together, and you come to create for yourself and for others, and to discover and explore together. And so in the museum, I love the activities that we've incorporated as part of the exhibitions, which increase dwell time, right? That's one of the things that make really helps to do. But it also helps you to really throw away these labels of, is this science, is this writing, is this English, is this engineering, and just embrace the content and embrace the experience. And so we see that in the museum when the students for intersections come to visit, but also when all of our guests come to visit, because we've incorporated it as a philosophy that runs through all of our programs, both in the museum, on the museum floor, in our summer camps, in our classroom programs in the labs, also in our outreach programs. So we see it everywhere. And we think the students and the guests have a different experience now than they would have had 2 years ago. And with our after-school programs, when we have longitudinal relationship with students and teachers over time, we really have the opportunity to push that to a whole nother level, and to really think about how do we use this extended time with these guys to really explore, make, literacy, but also hacktivism, the idea of of acting upon your community and acting upon your life, and not just being somebody who just stands by and watches it go by, or somebody who the world acts upon, but someone who also acts upon the world. So we think that's powerful, and we think that that's really helped us to do more than we could have done before. So the National Writing Project. So Dr. Brandon and I and Robert Corbin, my boss, and I we all had different strands of personal relationships, and so when we came together, it was definitely something that we were like, oh, we have to work together. This is such a powerful opportunity. So the partnership evolved very organically and very quickly. And what we realized is that not only do we come from similar mindsets in terms of make, and similar mindsets in terms of integrated learning and bringing disciplines together, but we also have different cultures, right? The university, the higher ed partnership, or the higher ed context and the informal science center context are culturally very different, and they have some things that are similar, but they also have some things that are different. And so everything from creating a budget to designing commitments to managing time and educators and how we do all of that were things that we had to iron out, and we always felt like we were always together looking in the same direction, and no matter what was going to happen, we were going to come through it together, and the ideas were always solid and always exciting, and so that helped us to push through any sort of budgetary or time management decisions that we had to make. So it was one that we learned a lot from, and it was one that we think ultimately went about as well as it could. And we continue that conversation now. We have another project that we're launching just next month with the support of a local arts and science council at a school that's based on our intersections work. So that partnership continues, and we hope it'll continue for a long time to come. So we're excited because once the intersections dollars started to, one of the things that we focused on last year was how do we continue this beyond it? We think this is important, and so it was a big focus for our retreat in Missoula, and thinking a lot about how does this go on beyond the end of the year. And so one of the things that we've seen a couple of things. One is a hurdle, and one is really exciting. So the hurdle was we put our online community in Google+, and we thought that was going to be really a powerful way to continue this, with or without funding, that the teachers who were involved with us and the educators who were involved with this project could continue this conversation online for free, and it could become a resource for them and teachers to continue to use beyond the dollars. One of the hurdles we ran into is that this past couple of months ago, as Steve was starting to get that rolling again, CMS basically told him that he can't use Google+ anymore. And so that's become a hurdle that we're working through, and we're thinking about what does that look like moving forward. And that's, the online community becomes a challenge when you work with a large school system and they're still figuring out what's the role, what are the costs and benefits of giving kids an opportunity to be online and interact online. And so even with a private community on Google+ that was sealed off, we're still having challenges. And so that's a hurdle, and we'll get past it. But what was exciting is the Arts and Science Council in Charlotte came to us and said, we want to give you some money to send kids to the museum. And so they give us a small amount of money, and they send a lot of kids to the museum. And that's great. But then we kind of cracked open the door with them, and we said, we'd love to work with students and teachers at a much deeper level. And so we cracked open that door, and they said, we want to hear more. So Dr. Brandon and I talked with them about the Intersections Project, how we want to continue that, and we talked to them about what that would look like in one school versus 3 schools, 4 schools. And so they were able to find a little bit of money to allow us to do this at a really exciting school. It's a STEAM magnet school in Charlotte, North Carolina called Oakhurst Academy, with a very forward-thinking principal. And so we're really excited about having the opportunity to take the model that we did last year with TCs and move it into a school that doesn't have embedded TCs, but will have the opportunity to work with National Writing Project folks and Discovery Place folks to think about make and literacy and science and integrated learning, and really taking that as part of STEAM and what does that look like. So, we're going to continue. We think the ideas are still solid. We think the ideas are still strong. They have, as I said, they've spread into our culture at Discovery Place. So in many ways that sustainability is there because it's already, you see it in the educators who got to work on the project, and you see it in the programs that are coming out. Programmatically, we're not the same as we were 2 years ago, and that's exciting to see because that's the direction we want to go. And so that's not going to change, but we'll continue to pursue more concrete projects that allow us to keep these ideas flowing.